When Brent Spiner came into my life in 1991, it was like a miracle happened to me. When I was a student at Florida State University, and when I completely rededicated my life to the Lord, I noticed Pastor Rayburn Blair at the church there in Tallahassee that I was attending like 3 or 4 times a week. I taught Sunday school. That every time after the service, and he was a Texas man too, he always put his arm around his wife and walked her out from the church service, and he or he walked with her hand in hand, and I thought, oh, that's so nice. I want to have a marriage like that. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to work on improving myself. And I thought, I had figured going to a state university was corrupting me because of all the rock music and the beer parties, and it was giving me a bad reputation. So I decided I'd go to a Bible college and I'd find my dream man there. He was going to be like a King David, macho, manly, he would take care of his woman like a strong, masculine man did. And I especially admired Texas men. But so I went to Bible college, even turned down a chance to become an Air Force officer. One of the reasons I turned down the Air Force officer chance is because I thought, you know, the image of being an officer, that doesn't quite go along with my idea of being like an Agnes Whitfield, David Copperfield kind of a woman, you know. Because I thought, if I want to get my dream man, he's not going to want some woman's liver for a wife. He's going to want a woman who's like an angel and who will be a domestic goddess and sweet and submissive and the perfect Christian wife, the Proverbs 31 woman. So much I admire about it. So I just started writing Brent Spiner because I still wanted that macho, manly man, but my husband didn't have any humility or sensitivity. He was all, I don't know, he wasn't really manly. He fooled me. And I got to admit that when I married him, because I had such an inferiority complex and some guys that I thought would be a good husband for me weren't interested in me and rejected me, I started lowering my standards a little, and I ended up falling in love with a sociopath, and I became like a codependent in that relationship. But even while I was married to him, I still kept my high standards and I still loved Jesus, but I was lonely. So I started writing Brent Spiner, and I knew that according to my church it was sinful to write a Hollywood star, but I thought, you know, I'd heard from Dr. Ruckman, who I admired at the time, Dr. Peter Ruckman, that Hollywood stars had to be kind of courageous because that's, you know, a hard field to break into, and that if you can win some of these people to Jesus, they could be a real influence for the Lord. So I told myself, well, you're writing him so you can win him to Jesus, but I was actually very transparent and open with him about everything that I believed. And I told him, I said, I hear you're from Texas. I said, I really like Texas guys. And I think I told him about Pastor Rayburn Blair too. So I really opened up to Brent, and I started writing him about maybe a couple times a month. It made me feel good because I couldn't be myself with my husband. My husband didn't understand me. He didn't even try to understand me. The only thing he understood was that he wanted everybody to think that he was the perfect church leader, and I had to help him prop up that image. And he was more obsessed with that than he was with meeting my needs or taking care of me if I was sick. Like if I got sick and I wasn't able to attend church, he would sometimes scold me and say, you're not that sick, you can go to church. He didn't like it if his wife didn't show up in church with him, you know, even if I was sick. So it was like, I had to be really sick. So he was so worried about his image. And one time he said he wanted to go off to the mission field with this church that was really controlling, where the preacher would try to put you on guilt trips if you didn't have a certain attendance number every Sunday. And I told my husband, I said, I don't really feel comfortable going out under that church. And besides, why do you want to go out under that church? You say you're a big King James Bible believer, and he's not. It's like, you don't make any sense to me. You want to be a fake on the mission field? So I started noticing my husband was a fake. And I wasn't impressed with that. Even though I found the perfect church guy, he did all the outward things to be a perfect church person. So long story short, I started writing Brent Spiner, and I thought, you know what? I guess my expectations were unrealistic, and I just have to learn to be happy where I'm at, be strong where I'm at, and accept the fact that I got to find my happiness in Jesus and not necessarily in my husband. But I thought, oh, but I wish that I had a husband that tried to understand me and that cared what I thought about and cared when he hurt my feelings and who didn't always criticize me all the time. So I started writing Brent just to have a male friend, or kind of like the husband I wished that I had. But I wasn't trying to go after him or anything. I just wanted a friend, a pen friend. To my amazement, I got a phone call about once a month, and it was Brent, and I didn't know it. And he didn't say anything. He would just, I'd pick up the phone, he'd be on about once a month. And then when we moved to Seattle and I was closer to Brent, this mystery caller spoke to me, and he said, oh, I want to rape you. And I thought, oh, who's this? I hung up on him. I thought, this is crazy. I said, it had to be one of the, I was writing Richard Arnold or Brent Spiner. I said, it's got to be one of these, some Hollywood person who's getting my mail down there at Paramount Studios. And then I got an album, a music album that Brent made, which I wasn't planning on buying, but my Christian pen friend, who was also a Star Trek The Next Generation fan, sent me the album, and I listened to it, and I heard Brent sing, and I thought, that voice, it's an exact match to the guy who's calling me on the phone, and with that longing, and says he wants to make love to me, and he wants to kiss me, and I thought, oh my God. And then I thought back how I knew that Brent Spiner was behind the drumhead, that Star Trek The Next Generation episode, when I asked him to expose the state, because I was worried I was going to lose my son to the state because he got into my prescription meds and I had to take him to the ER, and then the state started harassing me and telling me I needed to attend parenting classes and everything. And I wrote Brent, and I said, Brent, I'm so worried I'm going to lose my son. Please expose the state. I know that you probably don't have time to mess with somebody like me, but if it would just be such a wonderful, generous thing to do. Well, to make a long story short, he did do something about it. He was behind the episode The Drumhead, and when I saw that, I thought, oh, Brent did that for me. I said, I can't believe it. Anyways, I found my dream man in Brent Spiner. He was a man of depth, manliness, courage and dependability, generosity, unselfishness, a great listener, a humble. When he talked to me on the phone, he had this very soothing, kind of like a quiet tenor voice, and he was never threatening, and he was so tender with me, and his words were like, I felt like I was being caressed and loved the way he spoke to me. It just affected me down to the very core of my being. I felt like I was being transformed. No other man ever did this to me at that time. I didn't dream that it was possible to have a man who would love me this much. I thought, wow, this big Hollywood star. And I wasn't impressed with him because he was a Hollywood star. It was just that I knew that he got a lot of fan mail, and I couldn't believe he was giving me all this attention. But apparently he noticed that I really tried to be a great woman for a great man, and he wanted to be that great man. And he apparently picked up on the fact that I was married to somebody who was like a narcissist, a sociopath. And when he sang that music album, time after time, I tell myself that I'm so lucky to be loving you. I thought, oh my goodness, and my husband treats me like my husband was always criticizing me. Brent never, he adored me. I said, it is possible for a man to love the real me. It just changed me. And the fact that he went to so much trouble to care for me when I couldn't give him anything. I was married, I was stuck. But that made such an impression on me. I thought, what a great person. He helps a woman who can't help him back. The only thing I can do is just be a beautiful woman to him, but I can't marry him, I can't be with him, and he doesn't care. He just loves me for who I am and not for what I do for him, which was the total opposite of my husband. And the real Brent Spiner was a manly Texan, and I loved, nothing could be finer than to stroll in Carolina with my life. He sang that. Oh, I said, oh, I like it. He's a Southern guy. He's deep. He's manly. He's macho. He's Texas manly. Oh, I thought he's like that Texas preacher, the one that I wanted. I wanted someone like that for a husband. That clone is nothing like the real Brent Spiner. The real Brent Spiner is deep. The clone is shallow. The real Brent Spiner is Texas manly. The clone is California flake, Loree McBride CUCK. The real Brent Spiner adores me and accepts me just the way I am. He doesn't try to change me. The Brent Spiner clone doesn't like who I am. I'm too conservative. I'm too Christian. I'm not really a Republican, but I was when Brent Spiner fell in love with me. I'd be too Republican for the clone. They're two different men. You may say, well, how could Brent Spiner, being a Democrat, when he fell in love with you, love you as a Republican? We weren't really upset. We kind of laid aside our politics and just looked inside the soul of each other. And Brent Spiner was a manly Texan. And let me tell you something about Texas men. They look out for their women. They consider it part of their macho-ness, and that's what I like about Texas men. And I didn't get that in my first husband, but I got it in Brent Spiner. And the reason I figured it out is Brent Spiner gave me unusual silence in September 1992. And it was so unlike him. He was so supportive. If I ever wrote him and said, why are you quiet? Are you trying to say goodbye? He'd usually ring the phone off the hook, and I'd know that he was saying, no, 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 no. But then he didn't do this in September 1992, so I knew something was wrong. This was such a supportive, awesome guy. So unlike that flaky clone. And he even had Gates McFadden and LeVar Burton. They used to call me up and fake like they were someone else. And I thought, oh, he's having his co-stars call me on the phone. I was married, so my husband, I wouldn't tell my husband about the phone calls because I wanted to protect Brent. And he would, and my husband threatened to divorce me after a while if I was writing, when he learned I was writing Brent. And so I had to risk the streets to keep up my communication with Brent. But I did it because I sensed that this was a man who really loved me. And I was not going to give that up for anything. I mean, I had been married, told me in a still small voice after Loree tried to burn down my mobile home and all sorts of horrible things happened. Said, she's a Vatican agent. And I thought, oh my God. Oh my God. He's loved me the whole time and I treated him so bad. I said, he loves me so much more than my husband loves me. He kept that woman just to try to keep me safe. I was a smart girl and I figured that out. I thought, wow, he loves me as much as Jesus loves me. And believe you me, Brent Spiner is like Jesus Christ. He would die for me. He would literally go on the cross for me. That clone, you look at his face, he wouldn't die for any woman. He's so self-centered. And that's how I can tell that Brent Spiner and the clone are two different men, and which is what I'm not. I despise the women's lib movement and the SJWs. I think they're disgusting. I think they're degrading men. The real men out there, the men who deserve to be admired and supported and loved, she tries to drag them down, to make them cuck men who will kiss her rear and who will worship her when she's such an inferior, dirty woman. And then a real macho guy who wants an angel for a wife and who wants to protect his wife and be loyal to her and true and sensitive and manly and steel and velvet to her, the things that I love in a man, she tries to transform real men into cucks, into ugly, vapid men who don't have a backbone and who would never die or die for any woman. And Brent Spiner would die for